Welcome to the world of Aghasba. Before we get started, I need to stress a couple things. One, Towers of Aghasba is still in early access. Things will change. In fact, while editing this video, a patch dropped that's supposed to change quite a few things apparently. I haven't played it yet, so I don't know. Two, I've only played a couple of hours of this so far. I'm not done. I'm definitely not an expert. I just wanted to get this out because I know a few people that might enjoy this game, and it may be something that my gaming group might get into. I don't know. And I thought maybe I'll share a few thoughts along the way. So, who do you play? You play a young, thus far unnamed member of the Shimu people. The Shimu people have traveled back to their homeland, which had been lost to myths for generations. You survived a shipwreck that put you on an island just off of the mainland. Unfortunately, the Paradise of Legend is a pretty poor excuse for a paradise once you get there and see it in person. Fortunately, you find yourself in possession of the tribe's amity crystal. What's an amity crystal? Glad you asked. Amity appears to be some sort of like magic or energy or something. Creating or helping life will build your amity, while killing or destroying things will drain it. This includes things like farming materials. That means, with a few exceptions, you have to building up life on the island with taking what you need in order to advance your gameplay. Some things don't affect your amity. Picking up loose stones, sticks, sometimes berries. These things will have no effect on your amity. Cutting down dead trees also doesn't really seem to have an effect. However, mining, cutting down live trees, killing random animals, all this stuff will drain your amity. There are a few monsters that you can kill without losing amity. There's these things called the Withered. They're like some sort of bug-like infestation. An infection, I guess, is the best way to put it. I've only seen a few types so far because I'm still pretty early in the game. There are small spider-like Withered that die pretty easily. Large Withered, also spider-like, that spit this like venom poison thing at you. I don't know. I suggest fighting them at a range. As you progress through the storyline, you can get a bow and arrow. If you don't have a bow and arrow, or you're out of arrows, you can grab stones and just throw them, because they do quite a bit of damage up close. This means you can't just like farm materials. If you run out of amity, you'll start losing life instead. So you have to build up life in areas that you play. Don't worry, it's not as rough as it sounds. Building up amity isn't that hard. Most stuff that I've done so far hasn't really cost a lot. That means you can spend a few minutes doing things like feeding animals, planting seeds, stuff like that to get enough amity to do quite a bit of farming. Travel in this game can be kind of slow. The stamina drains pretty quickly, so when you're running or climbing, you need to plan accordingly. You also get a parachute early on, which will allow you to glide down from heights and make a little bit of distance. This also takes stamina. I very quickly found a glider, which is faster and more maneuverable, but it also drains stamina a little fast. And I found what looks like will be fast travel hubs once I get further into the game. I'm just not far enough in to have that activated. The artwork of Towers of Aghasba, like everything else in the game, is a bit of a give and take. I heard in another video that I watched on the game that some of the artists that worked on the game were from Studio Ghibli. If you're not familiar with Studio Ghibli, they're the animation studio behind classic animes like Princess Mononoke or Spirited Away. And the game in many ways shows it. It has that beautiful artwork to the landscape that you would expect from a Studio Ghibli game. It can be an absolutely beautiful game in places. But then you get to some of the faces. Some of them are very definitely stylized, shall we say. Not my cup of tea. Some of the animations feel weird. Aghasba is an open world game with all the benefits and flaws that go along with that. It's very easy to get sidetracked with side quests. In some games, that's not that big of a deal, but in Towers of Aghasba, you only seem to level by advancing the main story. That means if you get too busy with side quests, you'll be restricted with some of your options. Things like inventory space, which is already pretty limited, it only seems to go up, it only seems to increase as you hit certain milestones in the main story. I found myself on several occasions with full inventories and then having to run my character back to the village that I had started in order to sort through and empty stuff. The combat can feel a bit stiff at times. It uses a similar radial menu for switching items that games like Conan Exiles uses. You'll hear me comparing this to Conan Exiles quite a bit because I've been playing that game since like 2017, which both plays for and against this game, because some of the controls in this game are similar enough to Conan Exiles that I feel like I should know how they work, but they're done differently enough that it trips me up every time. And then you have there are parts of the UI that I think don't make much sense. For example, the amity counter is up in the top right corner. I don't know how long it was before I figured out what it was, or what it was, what it meant. Because there's nothing in the game that tells you, hey, this is your amity. In my opinion, that should be in the bottom left corner with your health and your stamina bar. Likewise, the slow plod through the menu method of pulling up things like your map, that really needs to be mappable to a button. Maybe I'm just spoiled with Conan Exiles putting it on the right D-pad, but having to pull up the menu and slowly flip through the tabs until you get to the map menu just feels super slow. Of course, it could just be because, like in Conan Exiles, the game doesn't pause just because you pull up a menu. If you're gliding through the air and you want to pull up the larger menu to see where you need to go, you're going to stop moving. You're going to keep losing altitude, but you won't keep moving because the game doesn't pause. There is, of course, a mini map in the bottom right corner, but it doesn't really show much other than what's immediately around you, which that wouldn't be that big of a deal if you could put markers on the map, but you can't, which makes the mini map almost useless. It tells you which cardinal direction you're facing, and if you know where you need to go from that cardinal direction, what direction you need to go from where you're at, great. But you're going to be pulling up the map constantly in order to figure out where that is. There have been several times where I would pull up the map, see what direction I need to turn relative to where I'm facing to go where I want to go, close the map, turn my, reopen the inventory, plot over to the map, and figure out, okay, am I facing roughly the right direction? If you could put down a marker on the map that you could still see on the mini map so you know which direction you need to go, which it feels like a weird complaint considering Conan Exile is a game that I have almost 5,000 hours in, doesn't have that feature, but I have 5,000 hours into that game. I know that map like the back of my hand. You also don't have the ability to repair your gear. Digging through the menu to replace something like a weapon that breaks in the middle of a fight is quite slow and can result in your death. Fortunately, dying in Towers of Aghasba seems to have very little effect, at least negative effect. You just respawn at your nearest spawn point. You have about half health when you respawn, which is obviously more than you had when you died. You don't even have to go retrieve your gear. You just have everything that you had on you when you died. Probably my biggest problem with the game is the fact that the main quests often feel like they just boil down to checklists. Go do this thing this many times. Get so many of this thing. Kill this many enemies. Whatever, that kind of thing. It's just, it doesn't feel like a story. It feels like a list of chores. But what about bugs and glitches? Because remember, this is early access, so it is going to have bugs and glitches. I seem to have been fairly lucky with bugs and glitches. I've seen a lot of complaints online about bad bugs and a bunch of bugs, but outside of some clipping issues and some minor UI stuff like resource markers remaining after I've gathered that resource, I've only hit one bug. I got stuck while climbing a pillar. I clipped into that pillar and had a bit of a time getting myself out. There's an option in the menu called Unstuck. If you use that, it'll get you out, but the game will warn you that your character might die in the process and you'll respawn. So I didn't use it. I managed to get myself unstuck. At the time, I didn't know the penalties for dying in the game were as light as they were, so I avoided using it. So, is it worth it? Maybe. I mean, it's only $30 US on both Steam and PlayStation 5. While I haven't had any major issues with it myself, there are plenty of reports online that suggest that it is possible to hit all kinds of bugs. But like I said, I haven't had any myself, outside of that one issue where I clipped into the rock of a pillar. It does have 4-player co-op, but it sounds like it's 3 players joining the world of 1 player, and it sounds like the story and quest progression won't be available while you're in co-op. Likewise, crossplay is planned. It's not currently out. They expect to roll it out in the second quarter of 2025. So, is it worth the $30? For me, probably. I'm going to keep playing it. I've enjoyed what I've played of it so far, but given that it is early access and a lot of people have been reporting a lot of bugs, it's going to depend on how adventurous you're feeling. Thanks for joining me, watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm trying to get back into making videos more often. Thank you for watching.